All right. So welcome. And I am very excited to be here today. I am Chantal, and I am actually um, twice a breast cancer survivor. And I am here today to talk to you about how we are, not so much how we can really tap into the life force that lives within us to be able to heal. And the word healing really means becoming whole. So I really think and believe that our body knows how to heal. And really, what gets in the way is some things that we process internally, either our mind or emotions. Sometimes it's other past blockages. And so we're going to be talking about this. But the purpose of today is really to face fear and tap into faith. How do we make that bridge when we're dealing with something called breast cancer that is really a life threatening at times disease, and it can really generate a lot of fear? So I'm actually going to share here my screen, I believe, so that I could just give you a little bit of an overview of what today is going to be like. Bear with me. Here we are. Yes. Okay. Whoops. There you go. There you go. There you go. Yeah. All right. So I think if I move this a little bit out of the way, not that anybody's in the way. Here we go. So basically, there's 3 days. We're embarking on a journey of 3 days, and I am very deeply grateful that you're here today. I'm grateful to sharing this with you. I am grateful that I am here to talk to you, and we're just going to go right into it. So the next 3 days, today we're looking at fear and really how to face fear fearlessly. And then we're going to be guided, hopefully, tap into the inner guidance that we all have inside of us tomorrow and finding our way and navigating through all the choices that we have and re-tapping into the power that we have inside of us to come whole again, to heal. And on Monday, we're going to talk about mapping out our journey. So, how do we get into this place where we know how and what choices to make that are self empowering? So I'm going to give you a little bit of my background in a minute so you'll understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this. And it's not foreign to my own journey, but first of all, I just want to ask you 3 questions, and you don't have to necessarily answer them verbally, but if you want, you can also post answers in the chat. I have my friend Barbara with me today, and I really am grateful that you're here. Thank you, Barb, for being with me. And Barb is managing both the Facebook page and also the chat. So as I'm doing the presentation, I can't necessarily see the chat. So the 3 questions that I have for you is, have you been diagnosed with breast cancer? That's number one. And I think I'm just going to share that. I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can look at it and see if I get any answers here. So, and if so, how many times? I'm hoping that I don't have an answer more than once on this one, but maybe you have been diagnosed more than once. And was this experience a defining moment? And what I mean by this is life threatening illnesses have a way of making us stop. We have to stop and look at what's happening. And sometimes we don't want to, and sometimes we want to skip through it. And we'll talk about this. It's part of the fear response. Some of us just want to fly over. And at the same time, if we really pause, a health breakdown can turn into a life breakthrough. And do you believe that your health breakdown can actually lead you to something bigger? And what I'm planting the seed for is that it is possible not only to heal breast cancer, find balance in our body, mind, heart, and spirit, but it is also possible to tap into a greater level of purpose, a greater level of meaning when we go through an experience like this. And then the last question is really, do you believe that you can heal? And it's really important, and we're going to talk about this today, how um, what we put into our mind is actually creating a reality that affects our body. So we do have what we think and feel does have an impact directly in how our body reacts. Okay, so is there anything at this point that I've said that is kind of resonating with you? If you want to share, go ahead. You can raise your hand, or you can just literally raise your hand physically and just go like this. And I can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. Okay. All right. I'm just going to move ahead here. I don't see anyone wanting to talk. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of me, who I am, but also where I'm coming from when I'm talking about breast cancer. So I am actually a social worker, and I graduated a couple of years, 3 years ago, actually. And I'm just going to share this for a second again. So social worker, life coach, and life coach for a long time, about 20 years. And a certified mind-body psychotherapist. I have been for 10 years in a training program that basically connects what's happening in our emotions, in our mind, and our body together. And I'm certified from the Hartford Family Institute down in Connecticut. And I'm also a big outdoor lover. That's why I was celebrating people being outside, and we're going to talk about the power of healing that we can find outside today. But I'm also a big person, a big proponent of the outdoor adventure. And ultimately, I am a spiritual being. So I believe that we are human beings having a temporary human experience instead of the other way around. So I'm going to repeat this again. I believe that we are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of my story right now so that you understand where I'm coming from. In 2014, I had my first breast cancer diagnosis. And this came as I was going through, and I was in the middle of a separation. I was married at that point for 23 years. So when I got diagnosed the first time, it was a shocking experience and filled with fear. There's no doubt about it. I spent an entire year unable to sleep more than 2 or 3 hours per night. Yet I carried on. My breast cancer diagnosis was actually a trigger for me to leave my marriage. And what I mean by this is I had settled for a way of living that was almost like the size of a little pea. And I was burning out. I was in a business with my husband, my ex-husband, and I was working too much, and my adrenals were burned out. And here we go, I had breast cancer. So I carried on. For 3 years, I went back to school, earned a degree in master's degree in social work. And I graduated, and I finalized the divorce 3 days after my graduation. And I also went for the licensing process. Wow. Now, after getting licensed, 2 weeks after, I got diagnosed for the second time. Now, this was COVID. And as you may have experienced yourself personally, COVID was a big shock to all our systems, and our life and our world turned upside down. Mine was literally stopped. I was in my kitchen, and I had a fever twice in 2 weeks. I called my doctor the first time. And because when I first saw her, she said, "It sounds like you've been stressed out going through the certification exam. And now it sounds like you feel better. Let's just move forward." Now that fever came back 2 weeks after. Now, not only was I having a fever, I was also in the throes of the beginning of COVID. So everything associated with COVID was creating a lot of fear in people's life, including mine, and a lot of isolation. I was working, and I had to stop going to work and be at home by myself with no one around. So here I am in my kitchen. My doctor sends me to take a COVID test, which fortunately comes back negative. Yet she says to me, there is something wrong. She had me take an x-ray, a long x-ray. And she said, there is something wrong showing on the x-ray. And I knew immediately when she spoke to me that it wasn't good. And she couldn't tell me exactly what it was. She said, it is cancer, and we don't know which one. Now, mind you, this is COVID. There's no way to get a test, no way to get a biopsy overnight, no way to see my oncologist. Everything is shut down. I'm in my kitchen by myself. And I literally feel like somebody took my blood and drained out of my body everything I had. So I hung up the phone and I said to her, what's next? Before I hung up the phone, and she said, we're going to try to get you to have you have a biopsy. Now, that took 1 week. And then another week later, the results of the biopsy. Another week later, my oncologist was still nowhere to be found. It took 5 weeks for me to get the formal diagnosis. This was round 2 breast cancer. Now, as you might know, and you may have experienced, that word does not resonate well with us, especially when it's the second round. So I had my moments of why me, why now, what have I done wrong, and all these thoughts that can come through and all the feelings associated with it. So I was lucky. I actually have a group of people that I belong to who knew what I was going through. And even though I was in my house by myself, because no one was going anywhere, everything was shut down, these people started calling me and literally saying, Chantal, we're here. We're holding this with you and for you. Chantal, you can heal. Chantal, you have the power within you to connect to a deeper place, a deeper source inside of you of healing. And we're here with you and walking this path along with you. Now, this was about 1.5 years ago, and I'm still here talking to you, and I'm excited to say this. My journey was a journey of walking one step at a time towards recovery. All the tools that I have had in my life accumulated that are mind, body related, that are emotional, psychological, physically based, and spiritual, all of it came into play. I gathered all my resources and started one step at a time, one day at a time, walking my way back to health. So that's why we're here today. We're here to talk about this. We're here to basically, for me to maybe offer you some tools that could be helpful, and hopefully for you to hear and tune in your own inner guidance to what I'm saying, because I really do believe in first round and second round of my breast cancer journey, I was lucky to have my inner guidance. And in fact, I'm going to refer to it. I just want to see if I can stop sharing here. Magnifying this. I want to stop. I don't know, Barb, you're co-sharing. Can you stop the sharing? Am I still sharing? The slide. I'm sorry, everybody. I just have this feeling that I'm still talking, and then I just want to, can you see it? Okay. I'm just going to continue. And if you can, oh, I see. Okay, got it. Okay, sorry about this, people. Technology is always fun, isn't it? Okay. So here we are. So basically what we're going to talk about today is a journey of following your own inner guidance. But first I want to ask you, are any of you relating to what I'm saying in terms of how your life and your health breakdown has kind of hit you in the forehead like a brick wall? Maybe you were someone going, and all of a sudden you got stopped. Or maybe you had this diagnosis and you find yourself all having all these feelings, fear, hopelessness, maybe anger, because I've had my moments of anger. And do you feel like sometimes, or maybe somewhere in there, your body is speaking a deeper truth? It's shown you the way to a way of living and a way of being that no longer serves you? Because that's what I'm talking about here. And do you also feel, and it's another question, that in your journey, you are being guided by something bigger, deeper, greater? And I call it your soul, or I call it your heart, whatever that is. I'm just wondering if anyone can relate to this. Either you had a breast cancer diagnosis and it really got you stunned, or you moved through it fast. Because my first recovery, I literally zoomed through it. I just wanted to get it done, get it over with, and move on. And so the second time was really like, okay, well, I guess you don't want to pay attention now. Listen. And I also know that this is a journey that I have chosen. So I'm just curious, is anyone having to say anything about this, either on the chat or in person? Feel free to chime in. Do we have anything, Barb?
Nothing on Facebook.
Okay, all
Mhm.
right. So I'm going to continue. So what I want to talk to you about for the next 3 days is really, like I said before, facing fear fearlessly. That's the focus of today. And how to tap into that deep inner guidance, this intuition that we all have, and how to map out your own journey. A lot of people have a lot of opinions, and maybe if you're like me, you just like to read, and I like to read a lot. And eventually my mind gets crowded with information. So on day number 3, I just would like to offer you an opportunity and experience to really make choices from a place where you are at the helm of your own ship. You are making your own decisions, no matter what people say around you. So here we are. We're going to start and talk about the fear factor, what I call the fear factor. And I'm going to share my screen again. Hold on a second. Here we are when we navigate all this
So
stuff.
Chantel, just
Yeah,
with Facebook,
yeah.
our friend Melissa Laborski is saying so intense and such courage that she also is a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for
Mhm.
bringing it on. Thanks,
Yeah.
Melissa. Thanks for being there. Okay, here we are. We're going to talk about fear, the fear factor. Here you go. So let's see if we can move this. Okay, so what is fear? We all know what that is, and we all know what it feels like. We're going to look at very briefly the purpose of fear, because there's a purpose to it. It keeps us alive. And there are also what we call cancer fears, the specific fears that we engage into. Our mind kind of gets locked into thinking when it's related to cancer. And I'm going to talk to you briefly about the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, because there is a correlation between childhood trauma and cancer. And I believe that there's actually a correlation between childhood trauma and breast cancer, because it has to do with the heart center, with the heart. And that study was a long study, 17 years, and correlated the effect of lingering stress, what's called chronic stress, toxic stress, to autoimmune deficiency. And I want to briefly talk about this as well, because there's no mystery why there's a relationship between childhood trauma and the onset of other diseases such as breast cancer. And then the most important part of today is really how to disengage the fear factor, the fear response. I have spoken to other women that have had breast cancer, and they really did share with me something similar to my own experience, which had to do with that panic that takes over, where your mind does not have any control over what's happening. And that's why I want to talk about it, because it's really important to disengage that response so that it doesn't take over your whole life, even though it feels like it can. So it's a fear, it's a normal response, obviously. Fight, flight, freeze is connected to survival. Now, the tricky part about it is that unless there is something in your face as big as a tiger or a life-threatening situation, our mind records and does not make the distinction between current reality, like there is danger in your face, versus what you think is dangerous. And so when we start thinking and we cannot disengage a thinking process, our body has the same reaction as if it was happening right now, even though there is no life-threatening situation. Now, breast cancer is and can be a life-threatening situation. And it is so important to know that what your mind does with this situation will impact on your body and your health. And that's why I want to talk about this today. Now, fear is a signal that a part of you needs attention. And what I mean by this is a part of you, and I call it the younger part of us, the inner child. is calling for help and needs reassurance. And we're going to talk about this as well. And breathing through fear, being with your fear, I call it physiology affects your psychology, is really the first step. So that's what we're getting into right now. So the purpose of fear is to really alleviate danger when it's in front of you. So I have this really funny thing on the screen there that says, you know, big tiger in front of you, either you run, either you fight, or you freeze and play dead. These are limbic brain responses. The back of your brain kicks in and you're not thinking, thank God, because this is a split-second reaction that will save your life. Now, in the wild, when does an animal whose life is in danger, let's say, I don't know if you ever watched a cat, even though sometimes it's a little challenging and heartbreaking to watch, but let's say your cat is chasing a mouse in the house and catches the mouse. The mouse at times will not be dead, but will play dead. And then at that point, the cat goes, well, this is boring. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to release that thing. And then you'll be surprised after a few seconds to see that mouse wake up and run. Now, in the wild, that reaction is now followed by an intense release, a shaking of the body that allows for all the hormones to flow, the cortisol, the adrenaline, all of this to help the body come back to homeostasis, which is called balance. The freezing response is probably the worst we can have. Fighting engages movement that allows those hormones to be released. Fleeing, running away, does the same thing. It's a mobilization of your physical body that allows you to go away. And the frozen response, as I said, is the worst because those hormones are now stuck in your body. So why am I talking about the physical aspect of that? Is because that's the first line of defense. Now, we all have a personal tendency, a personal response based on our trauma history or just based on our life. Do you find yourself being a fighter? If you have been diagnosed with breast cancer, did you roll up your sleeves and just decided, I'm just going to go through this. I'm just going to do it without thinking too much. Like you roll your sleeves up and you just push through. Or did you have a moment of deer in the headlight? Oh, I'm just going to pretend it's not happening. Or did you have a moment of complete avoidance? Like I'm just going to walk away, get busy, and go through the motion at the same time, hope for the best. And the fawn response, which is the fourth one that I have there on the screen, is the people pleaser. I'm going to try to make peace with what is the situation is. And the reason I'm calling this forward, and sometimes we have 4 responses in a row or, over time. So the reason I'm calling this forward is because no matter what your response is, it is important to first recognize it so that you can actually have some space. And what I mean by space is like you're not always in that reaction mode. You can actually have that space, this distance between your self-awareness and your reaction. Because the reaction at the end of the day will create a series of all this hormonal reaction that I just described will keep happening in your body. Now you want to enhance healing. Life force, as I said, wants to flow through you at all times. So you have the power. It's important to recognize what's happening in your mind because it influences what's happening in your body. Now, I have this picture there that says a life-threatening illness feels like danger. Yes, it feels like there's a tiger or there's a monster in your life. And often I see people considering breast cancer as the enemy, the thing that I have to extract out of my body, this horrible thing happening to me that has nothing to do with me. And I happen to believe that I'm not judging and criticizing this reaction. I'm simply wanting to say that what's happening in your body is part of you. And if you can expand outside of that moment, being bigger, holding the space for it, then healing happens. So I'm talking about the ACE study because adverse childhood experiences leave an imprint in the mind, body, nervous system. Think of the water going down the mountain. And I don't know where you live, but I know where I live. We've had a ton of rain lately. Water will take the path of least resistance. It will keep going down the same pathway and it will get deeper. It will groove itself down on the ground on a deeper level. We don't reinvent the wheel in terms of our nervous system and our habits. So if you have a history of trauma, and I just want to plant the seed for that, because if you do, it's important that you recognize that you're probably more geared up for having that strong reaction of panic, anxiety, chronic stress. It may have had affected your health already, and it's important to recognize that. Not as a place to feel like you're doomed. In fact, I invite you to consider the fact that if you have had trauma, there's a part of you that needs to be brought into your healing process. I know for me, if you look at the ACE study, there's the ACE study quiz. You can take a quiz, 10 questions. I scored 9 out of 10 on that quiz. And I'm saying this to you completely openly by saying to you that I know that I've had in my nervous system a deep groove that I've worked my entire life to reroute. So the field of neuroscience has taught us that we can rewire our nervous system, but it requires that we engage into that process. It requires that we actually make the choice every time we get the trigger response kicking in, that we become aware and as best as you can make the choice to disengage that response. It's like a hook that wants to pull you back and you have to release that. So we're just about ready to talk about this, but first I just want to say, I want to ask, Barb, do you have anything to say about this? I'm just curious, because I know your specialty is in trauma and also working with women that have had trauma.
Oh, absolutely. When you're talking about, and then Melissa said something too. I loved when you talked about the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Like that was a huge eye opener for me too. Working with women, we tend to hold on to things. It's funny, we don't keep our sneakers, but we'll keep all of our ideas, thoughts, emotions because they're so deeply entrenched, right? So that whole process of, we talk about the spring cleanings, this is huge. Melissa said, being bigger, holding the space for it, the healing happens. That is profound. This applies to all healing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both of you. Thanks, Barb. Yes.
Yeah.
And also the bigger part. Yes. It's the challenge is like we get pulled in. It's like this very short vision. We get really tied in. And then how do we let go, release? You know, think of your hands. If they're like this, they can't breathe. The blood is not flowing. So if you can just slowly release that, there's life flow happening in your hands and the rest of your body. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go back into our little, not little, but presentation here. So here we go. Hold on a second. Sometimes I have to move things around. There you go. All right, so the ACE study. We talked about this. Now, the first thing is to recognize what your response is to the fight, flight, freeze. And that means you are able to either, if you're freezing, it's on the left there. And by the way, I will post these slides on the Healing Sanctuary Facebook group, and you will have access to those slides afterwards, as well as the recording. So, because I'm aware that I'm passing on a lot of information that is brain related, and at the end, I simply want you to have a moment to pause and become aware, because awareness is very powerful. That's the purpose of doing these virtual retreats, is to have that moment of awareness, because awareness creates space between you and that brain response. So if you are someone who freezes, you may feel numb, your heart is pounding, you feel stuck, you have a sense of dread, and it says their pale skin as if like the blood runs out of your body. That's the reaction that I basically shared with you when my doctor said you have breast cancer again. Holding your breath, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about, the power of breath to change your physiology. Yes, holding your breath is also about freezing. It's the mouse in the cat's mouth playing dead, withdrawing everything that looks like life. So that's freezing. Now, fighting is about being on top of it, pushing through, stomping, kicking, yelling at people. You may have a knot in your stomach. You may have nausea and vomit, but it's really about pushing out. Like, I'm going to push through. I'm going to make my way through, roll my sleeves, and fight somebody. Now, in all honesty, I am a fighter. So I fought with my oncologist the first time. In fact, I fired him and I found another oncologist because I just wasn't wanting to have that fight. I was just like, either you're going to listen to me or else. This is my body. This is my life. And then if you fight, you're sitting there and you're moving, but you're not necessarily talking. So you're fidgeting, you're feeling trapped, you're pacing, you feel tense, you have anxiety, but nothing is being externalized and moving through. It's really living in your body, that anxiety, without having a channel for it. Okay. So either one of these reactions, and the fawn response I didn't put because in the face of cancer, sometimes it's not as obvious. So here you are. I'm just going to have you pause for a moment and just ask yourself, do you have a history of trauma? And if so, how do you relate to stress? And if you don't have a history of trauma, same question applies. How do you relate to stress? Do you live it like it's part of your life, like it's you? Or do you know that it's actually not quite? Or it doesn't have to be who you are? And what's your primary response? Are you a fighter? Do you flee or do you freeze? Again, these questions are there for you to have a moment to pause. As soon as you become aware, you unhook yourself from the groove, the watered down, that will always take the same pathway. You unhook yourself and you start creating a new, or be at choice to have a new neural pathway. And how do you manage your stress? That's important to know that you have some tools. And then finally, what has not worked? And the reason I'm saying this is because we repeat the same thing the same old way. And that's kind of the definition of insanity. So today I'm offering an opportunity to change that. So how do we move from fear to faith? The first thing is to recognize. I'm going to pause again before I make the transition to what to do and how to go about it. Fear is not something to be skipped over. And I don't say that fear is bad. It's the other way around. I just want to say, take a moment and recognize when you have fear in your system. Say hello to it. Tune in. It is there for a purpose. It is calling you in. It is asking you to pay attention. And that's what I want to go into now, is how do you pay attention? It's important to make a decision. You may see this here. I'm going to see if I can move this little bar here. But the bottom line, in decisions have power. Where your mind goes, where your attention goes, energy flows. So I'm repeating this and I'm going to repeat it again. Where your mind goes, where your attention goes, energy flows. So when we make a decision, we're no longer at the mercy of that limbic brain, which is a lower part of our brain. It's the stem part of our brain. We engage what's called the prefrontal cortex, self-awareness, and the ability to make choices. So make the decision when you're afraid to want to shift that reaction. You're not the victim of what's happening in your body. And that also, disengaging from the fear factor, will allow healing, the healing response, to amplify in your body. Now, changing your physiology to affect your psychology is the first thing. We cannot think our way through fear. When I had all these nights, night after night after night, not sleeping, there was no way I can talk my way out of it. I had to do some things that were physically based. And committing to changing your relationship to yourself and to fear is the third step, which is, like I said, I'm very lucky to be surrounded by very powerful healers and teachers. And one of my teacher in my mind body psychotherapy training program used to say to me, when you feel fear, it's not moving in, it's actually moving out.
Oh,
So I know, right?
yeah.
Do you want to say something? You had a moment there. Go ahead.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. And then I also have a question for you too, Chantel, from
Yeah.
Melissa.
Yeah.
Can you say that again? When you feel fear, it's not.
It's not moving in, it's moving out. And so that means when you have a trauma history, any sort of background that got you imprinted with fear. I'm going to give you an example. The first time I went to psychotherapy, or maybe the second time, I was like maybe 30 years ago. I was talking to a therapist, and the whole time I would talk to her, I was shaking. Yet I had no awareness that this shaking of my body was actually fear. I used to say to her, and it was summer, like it was 80 degrees outside, and I was shaking like a leaf. And I would say, can I have a blanket? I'm cold. And then one day she said to me, you know what? You're not cold. This is fear. You're shaking because you're afraid. And I was so disconnected from that feeling of fear. I had shut it down so much that I had no awareness that I had fear in my physical body. So when you start shaking, when you start feeling fear, it is coming out. It's not moving in. Does that make sense, Barb?
It really does. I've had that experience myself too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melissa has a question from your previous slide. Is it all right for us to pop back?
Yep.
So she said in the prior slides, you also included the people-pleasing response.
Yes.
Does that also fit in here? I find that I sometimes respond to stress by trying to make everything perfect for everyone else, control when things are out of control. That's huge.
That is it. That is it. That is the fawn response. Yes, Melissa. So, and I didn't include it, but I'm going to say something about it right now because it is important that in a sense, in the dealing with doctors, and I know you are a doctor, but in dealing with the medical profession and dealing with breast cancer, I have seen some women, and it's just not with the medical profession, it's with their partners, it's with their family, their support system. People give them opinions on how they should go about doing their journey. And if you're a fawn, you will agree to what people say because you don't want to rock the boat. Because rocking the boat in your history was something life-threatening. You felt like if you didn't agree, if you were not, and I'm going to say people pleaser, but not in a negative way. If you didn't smooth the edges, your life would be at stake. So I hope it answers your question, Melissa. And yes, what you said about wanting to make everything and everyone good is part of that fawn response. You got it. Did you say anything, Barb, or good to move on? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's see here. We got, I don't know why this is not moving through, but we are, okay, here we go. I'm going to move to this story for a second. So I was saying decisions have power in where attention goes, energy flows. So I'm going to move forward a little bit here because the first thing to really recognize is that breast cancer is not the enemy. Whatever happens to you is not the enemy. And I'm really focusing on what's called life affirming principles today. What you hold in your mind and what you hold in your heart holds a lot of power. So you can call these affirmations, but it's really how you approach your journey will make a difference on the outcome. As I said before, breast cancer or any disease in the body is an imbalance in the system. There's a disruption in your wholeness. It's not something to be extracted, even though, yes, you will have surgery, and yes, you may have other treatments such as chemotherapy and radiation. Yet if you can, again, become bigger and hold that your whole entire body at all times is seeking balance. And now you may wonder, as I say this, why then is this happening? Why is there disruption? This is part of the recovery journey. It is part of Coming whole again is to ask those questions. But the first thing is not to go there. The first thing is to settle, breathe, and start embracing the principle that you are whole, that your body is connected, not just to this physical body, but connected to everything that has life force around you. And affirming things like I am healed may not feel right to you, but try it on for a bit. I've been doing this in my meditations in the morning, like just saying to myself, I am healed. I've already arrived. Like it's already in process. And you are loved. We'll talk about the heart in a few minutes, but really, breast cancer happens in the heart center, right? So whatever disrupted that feeling of love, self-love and love, receiving love, is really affecting this center here, the heart chakra. And then again, saying my body knows how to heal. My soul guides me towards healing and wholeness. How do you know this? Is because there is a reason that I feel like I have the strength to go through this, is because there is a strength much bigger than this reality, this moment, right? And then I always say to myself, I am connected to the energy that creates world. So life affirming practices are in 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. The first thing is the physical part. I want to go into this for a moment. As you listen to me, it's a very simple practice. I have taught yoga for about 20 years and practiced yoga, and there's something in the field or the background of yoga called pranayama, the practice of different breathing. The simplest thing is to do 4 breaths in, hold it for 2, and exhale it for 4. So go ahead and take a deep breath in, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 2, 1, 2, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, take a breath in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just feel what it feels like. Maybe right in this moment, you just have done that. That is the beginning of a shift. Your breath, our breath is connected to life itself. It's called prana, life force. Think about it. We're little babies. We're born. We take the first breath, we come alive. We take the last breath, our spirit returns. So what animates our body is air, prana, life force. We can live without food and we can live without water for a certain time, but we cannot live without breath and air for very, very long. It's a split few seconds and that's it. So breathe, allow yourself to deepen your breath. Not just when you're scared. This practice, it's like when I use the word practice, I want to refer to working out for a second, okay? Because everything I'm about to enter and talk about right now is like building muscle. You start with 1 pound. If you have ever worked out and had no strength to begin with, you start very small and you keep doing it, and then 2 pounds, and then 3 and 5 and maybe more. So a practice is something you want to do when you're not in danger. So implementing a way of connecting to your body through breath and other ways is something that you want to start putting in your life on a daily basis. So not everyone can meditate, and they say you don't start meditating when the house is on fire. You want to meditate when things are calm and when you feel like you have some space in your life and in your surrounding. Space is created. So that's breath will relax your nervous system, will disengage the sympathetic, which is the fight, flight, freeze, and engage the parasympathetic, which is the more calm part of your nervous system. It will help you relax. It will bring energy back to your central organs, and it would also allow your mind to see clearly what's happening and focus on what matters. Now, moving matters too, because as I said earlier, it releases the hormones that are in your body. It releases what gets lodged in your tissues that becomes toxic material. Now, when you have breast cancer, you may not feel like moving a lot. You don't feel good. You may feel sick. You may feel dizzy. You may feel nauseous. No matter what, find a way to move, even if it's gentle movement. Melissa teaches Qigong, which is a practice of bringing energy from the earth into the body and taking energy from the universe back into the body. Yoga is another practice of slow movement and breath. Walking is simple. If you can walk, you were born at some point and learned to walk. Walking will help you release again, or anything related to nature. I am big avid of bicycle riding and other outdoor activities, but really going outside will help you recalibrate. It's impossible to move without breath. So then you have breath and then you have movement, and your body will want to regain homeostasis, come back into balance. The first day after my mastectomy, I'm not kidding you, I was all hooked up to all kinds of stuff. And I had a little pillow under my arm and I'm walking. I literally put my clothes on and walked for 15 minutes. I needed to go back outside and feel my feet on the ground and feel like I was able to move. So no matter what you can do it. It will help you connect to your body on a different level. Know and remember that you are more than the experience that you're temporarily having in the moment. Is there anything you want to add to this, Barb? I'm just curious.
No, this is excellent. Absolutely. I love the gentle way that you talk about however you can move, just do it. Like being gentle with yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I really mean a practice, again, a daily walk of 15 minutes will get you a long way. It doesn't have to be an hour-long process. Little increments will start shifting again that physiology. All I'm talking about is how do you start balancing and creating a new response in your body, not only in the nervous system, but also in your immune system. When you feel good, there's a whole series of information and books written about this, but one of them is called the Molecules of Emotions. When you feel good, your body responds by having a series of hormones. When you're happy, when you laugh, when you see something beautiful, when you're peaceful, there's another series of hormones that is being released in your body that actually takes care of the stress hormones. So it's not only the movement physically that changes your chemistry, but it's also what's happening in your mind, emotion, the response you have in being exposed to something more life enhancing. Okay, so let me just go back to this for a second. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. It's always the buttons that we have to click through. Seems like there's always too many buttons to click through. Okay. So what's your favorite way to move? That's the first thing. I am a firm believer. I was a wellness coach before I was a life coach, a wellness coach. I'm certified in nutrition, no kidding. But I had people come to me and asking me, like I remember this client at some point who was an attorney, stressed to the gills, coming to me and having this idea that somewhere in her past, she was able to attend 5 spinning classes per week. And then she was coming to me with, she couldn't even walk 15 minutes. And she was like, okay, how do I get back to 5 hours of spinning a week? And I looked at her and she had obviously stress issue, weight issues, headache issues, digestive issues. These are all the symptoms of an overly stressed body and an overly stressed system. And I said to her, how about we start simple? Can you walk half an hour, 3 times a week? And that 3 times a week, 30 minutes, became, so she enrolled her husband because he also apparently needed to do the same thing. So 3 times a week became 4 times a week, not only for them, but also for the dog. And they had a dog that was kind of going insane in the house, all cooped up. So now we have her, we have her husband, we have the dog getting a walk every day, eventually 3 times, 4 times every day. 30 minutes roll into 45, roll into an hour every day. Now that movement upward helped her not only lose the weight, but also gave her clarity on her life. And she eventually came to me one day and said, I'm quitting being a lawyer. I was shocked. And I had to remind myself that I wasn't the person or I was not the trigger for her decision. She had come to that herself by calming her body, by calming her mind and her heart. Clarity came in and she decided that the lifestyle she was living was no longer suitable to who she was and who she wanted to be. So that's what exercise does. Breath does, is to have you be that person that you know you can be. And so when I say, what are your favorite ways to move? It matters a lot that you do what you like, that you don't go according to what is out there. Find what makes you feel good. I am a big, big, big proponent of that. If you've been diagnosed with breast cancer and you're looking at your life in a deeper way, I want to say to you, if not now, when? This is it, right? So, all right, let's see what we got here. We got an issue with this thing again. Here we go. Oops. Sometimes here we go. Now, I want to plant a seed for the emotional aspect of the reality that we live. So now we have the breath, we have movement. Emotions carry energy as well. So in that book, Emotion, Molecules of Emotion, Dr. Candace Pert actually studied the reaction we have in our body when we have emotions and thoughts. And when I'm say laughing, she studied people, and maybe some of you know this already, but a lot of studies have been done on watching funny movies when you're sick. The molecules, and this is one thing that I remember from the book. Let's say you have a cell and you have a receptor. It's like a little door that opens. And the molecules is like, let's say there's a fight to get through the door. So you have the molecules of cold and you have a molecule of joy, and they're both trying to get in. Now, the molecule of joy, if you get that in, it's the same door. Either you have a cold or you let joy in. It's the same door. There's no two doors. So in that moment, if you laugh, let's say you laugh in your life, you open the door for that molecule to enter your cell and activate the autoimmune response. It's that simple. Now, when we go through breast cancer, and believe me, I have cried. I'm back to the heart center. The heart center is the heart chakra, and it holds two things, more than two, but love and joy and grief. If you have not processed whatever has happened in your life that made you, that was painful, that was hurtful. And again, I did not know that for myself. I had 20 years of psychotherapy, disclaimer. And yet, when I went through my mastectomy and I started doing my recovery, I am not kidding you. I cried every single day for an entire year for an hour. I was shocked. I was like, how could I cry so much? Now, mind you, when I was married with my ex-husband, I remember him saying one day, in 20 years, I have seen you cry 5 times. I wasn't someone who was crying. I would not allow those tears to flow. I lived sadness and grief as a weakness. I had to pull myself up from the bottom when I was a kid. And crying was a sign of weakness. So all that grief got stuck in my chest. And it was important that I let it release. So emotions literally means energy in motion. Moving the energy into letting your emotions to flow will allow for the energy to flow. It's that simple. There's not one single emotion that is bad. Sadness, anger, depression. Depression is repression. So taking the lid off to what you're feeling when you're feeling sad and mad. There's not a lot of emotions, right? Sadness, anger, joy. Can't remember the other one. Peaceful. I think there's 5. Ecstasy, I think or orgasm, I think is the 5th one. So basically allowing for those energies, and there's a lot of words out there to describe, like on the spectrum of anger, there's frustration. On a spectrum of sadness, there's depression, loneliness. On a spectrum of joy, there's, ecstasy down to just simple peace. So all these emotions are normal. We're human beings. And our emotions are there to give us, it's like a parameter. I call it inner guidance. What feels right is right. So in your breast cancer recovery, that is your radar. That is the scanning system you have. Like when I first met my oncologist, the one I had, the first one I had, he was rattling all these percentages and all these statistics and how I should go about it. And there was nothing about what he said that felt right to me. I walked away from those meetings and those, appointments feeling completely defeated. And it just dawned on me one day that if I had survived my childhood, and like I said, I'm a fighter, I knew and I could find my way through, and I did not want to be a statistic. I wasn't going to live up to those statistics. So that's me being a fighter, right? But my emotions, the one I felt when I came away from those meetings, gave me a sense of direction. And I basically said to myself, I want to find someone who's going to support me and empower me in my decision-making process. So I hope it makes sense. So that's number one. Emotions are your radar. They help you find your way through what is right for you. And they are also there to be held in deep kindness and compassion. Within each one of us, there's a little child, and that little kiddo needs attention. So when we don't listen to our emotions, we actually don't allow for that part of us to have a voice and to have a presence. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and just let you breathe into that. The little kiddo inside of you, when you feel emotions, is trying to say something to you that may have not had the space to be heard when you were younger. So when you don't allow yourself to have your emotions, you do to yourself what was done to you. You put a lid on your life force. You put a lid on your ability to live and expand and heal. So now as you listen to me, if you find yourself having done this or doing this, don't beat yourself up, okay? It's important that you let that be known to from your higher self to your little self, you make connection. Now I'm just realizing that it's an hour and I still have a little bit to go. So I have two more things I want to cover. And I want to say to you, if you have to go ahead and, click off, but otherwise I'm going to spend another maybe 10 minutes. So any feedback or questions at this point in what I'm saying, Barb? Is there anybody saying anything in here that
Melissa just said something really powerful. And as very young children, we know how to move with our emotions with ease. This is our gift to connect with, feel, flow with emotions. Isn't that true? Like as
Yes.
we get older, that's when the repression starts. And that was that huge depression is repression. Wow.
Yes. And thank you for highlighting this, Barb. And also, Melissa, thank you for saying this. Yes.
Yeah.
When we're little kids, we know how to move. We go through sometimes a spectrum of emotions. We can cry. We can have a temper tantrum. We can be happy 5 minutes later. And so what makes that happen, what makes repression happen is usually, and I want to say this to you to bring some compassion to what you do to yourself. It's not that no one was born doing this to themselves. We do to us what was done to us. We treat ourselves the way we were treated. Now I'm going to add a caveat to that. Not only do we do this, but we also, whoever was around us that did that to us, that was done to them. So there is what I call a trauma lineage, a trauma history. So at some point in the healing process, in the breast cancer healing, emotional processing, or any healing, it is important to have your feelings about what has happened to you as a little kid. Whatever hurt, whatever anger you have, let it be, let it flow, open the door to that, let it be expressed. And then go back the lineage. At some point in my meditations in the morning, I would just talk back to my parents. Both of them are deceased. And I would talk to the kid inside of them, not the grown up that did all kinds of strange things, hurtful things, but the kid inside of them and say, I see that you were hurt too. And that's the beginning of forgiveness. It's kind of like knowing that we are all interrelated as human beings and we all have the same series of emotions. And I'm just planting a seed for forgiveness, because forgiveness, when we when we engage into forgiveness, we release the hook, the line of energy that keeps us stuck in the past. And I'm not forcing, and I'm not saying force forgiveness, because it cannot be forced. It took me a long time to get to that place where I can actually see and say what I just said to you. But I always think, and somebody gave me that image one day, when we're angry and we hold anger and resentment, we hold a hot coal in our hands. And the person that we're holding resentment towards is not holding that. We are holding that. And that is burning our own hand, right? So that's the emotional processing. Whatever you release, you are able, whatever you feel, you can heal. And I didn't make that up, as you know, Louise Hay came up with that. Okay, I'm going to go back to my slides here for a second, because I want to talk about healing breast cancer, healing the heart center. So I will send a recording for what I call a heart center meditation. I usually guide people through it, but today we won't have time. So there is something about that is important about having your heart, your connection, your breath to your heart. Hold on a second. I want to see if I can move that. So the heart, why do I focus so much on the heart center? As I said before, because breast cancer happens in the heart chakra, in the heart center. It's also because in the center of the heart is what I call our inner wisdom. So if we look, and I'm going to 30 seconds on the chakras. There's 7 of them. The tailbone is the root chakra. The crown, top of your head, is the crown chakra. Now, this is like a line of energy that connects us to the universe, right? So if we imagine that the tailbone, the legs, the feet are like roots. It's like the tree that plants roots deep into the soil and gets grounded. That's the root chakra. Now we have the second chakra, the third, the fourth is right in the middle. So from the bottom to the heart is our humanity. And from the top to the heart is our divinity. That is the part of us that knows that we're more than this moment, this body, this experience. So often when the heart gets constricted, we lost the connection to remembering who we are from the top. And we also have lost our connection to the earth, our body, our humanity, and just feeling physical health, emotional health, and a sense of self. Healthy self-esteem is the third chakra. That is basically where things go awry. We're losing energy in those centers. So that's all I want to say about this. There's way more to be said, but for now, that's all I want to say. So the heart is where you're the master of your own ship. You take in inspiration and you take in your humanity and you sit in the center of your heart and you have that perspective that is much wider than who you are. So when you start sitting in your heart center, you have more inner wisdom. You have more power to decide and see clearly that whole perspective, not only of you in this moment, but your life.
Chantal, so
Yeah.
San said like the monkey trap when you're talking through the chakras.
Yes. Repeat again, the monkey trap?
Yeah, like the monkey trap. Hmm.
Oops, I think you want to unmute yourself. There you go. Go for it.
Not the chakras.
What
The
were you
thing that
talking about,
were-
son?
right before you were talking about I'm thinking of the chakras now, but right before then you were talking about um
The mind?
yes, and being able to let go. So like the monkey trap, have you heard of the monkey trap? I don't want to take your time actually.
No. I'm
No,
glad
it's
you're
perfect. Putting the hand in the jar with the candies and not letting go, right?
This one is, it's a crying shame. It's much more cruel, but they take like gourds and they put a hole in the bottom of the gourd and they attach it to a chain and cement it to the ground. And then they stick a banana in it. And of course the gourd will not, the monkey can put its hand in there, grab a hold of the banana and not be able to pull out because the banana and the hand will not be able to fit through the tiny little hole. So you get trapped by this want or this emotion or something because you can't let it go. And if you just let it go, the monkey could go and not get caught.
Right. So yes, it is a very powerful analogy. Thank you for sharing this with us.
All
Yeah.
right.
A
Yes.
great visual, yeah.
I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you stepped in and shared that with us because yes, exactly. That's what not forgiving will do eventually. It will drown us energetically. So thank you so much for saying this. I completely agree with what you said. And the image is very powerful. Okay. Is there anything else, Barb, that you see anywhere? No? Okay. So let's see here. Sometimes this is not moving through. Hold on. Not sure what's going on here. The slides are stuck at the heart center. That's funny. Okay, there you go. Okay, now I want to talk about mental reframing. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time. There's a lot of information today that I'm passing on. So again, we're in the context of healing and engaging in life force. There's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot of details, and don't get stuck in the details. I'm just basically coming at it from different angles: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. But all of it is to say, how do you allow life force to come in? And how do you remove the blocks to life force? Because your health and your physical body will come together as you let life force come in. So mental reframing is the power of the mind, is how we think. What we think will affect our feelings, and what we feel will affect our physical body. It's such of a darn thing. We have about 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and only 7,000 of them are new. We recycle old thoughts over and over again. So now we're back in the field of neuroscience, and we're back in the groove that keeps repeating itself and digging deeper. So we engage our mindfulness, our ability to be mindful in noticing our thoughts. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about a practice to be able to witness, what I call the witness consciousness, to be able to see your thoughts and see the story that you run in your head without jumping into it. You know, it's like you're watching a movie and all of a sudden you're in and you become all the characters. And the next thing you know, you don't even know where you're sitting and you don't even know what's happening in your life in this current moment. Because the power of now, and I'm using a term used by Eckhart Tolle, but the point of power is now. So when we have a diagnosis such as breast cancer, it is so easy to get trapped into a story. And because of our survival, it really takes 5 good experiences to overcome a bad one, 5 to 1. So breast cancer is a bad experience. It leaves an imprint that can get really deep in the mind, body, heart, spirit system of your being. It is a decision that we make to reorient our thinking over and over again. And how do you know what you're thinking? You don't feel good. That simple. You don't feel good. So there's something running in your mind that makes you feel not good. And when I mean not good, I don't mean like depression like doom and gloom, like stressed out, like notice what your thoughts are. Notice your thoughts. So basically, number one, I say, are they life enhancing or life depleting? You knew immediately. If you're thinking something that doesn't feel good, every morning when I get up, I take the pulse. It's like taking the pulse, right? I notice what I'm waking up to. And if I'm not feeling that great, I meditate every morning. And then I start putting things in my mind that makes my mind reorient. A lot of stuff out there, people talking, positive things, affirmation. Louise Hay was really big on affirmations. Whatever works for you. A lot of inspirational speakers. It could be you talking to you. It could be you, like I said, affirming certain things. But basically, the question is asking yourself, how do I want to be? How do I want to focus my mind? That is the power you have. No one has that power for you. I cannot make your mind shift unless you choose to shift what's happening in your mind. Now focus on what you want. I'm going back to that because we're back to the heart. The mind is a poor master and a great servant. I'm going to say this again. The mind is a poor master and a great servant. Who is the master if your mind is not? Right? That's the question. The master is you higher self, deeper self, wiser self. However you want to talk to it or talk about it. And that's what we're focusing on tomorrow is how to engage in a conversation and a connection, relationship with our deeper self. Because your mind was going to take you down. Our mind wants to take us down. We believe the story up there is so enthralling. When I got my second diagnosis, and I'm not kidding you, I'm going to be honest, it took me 3 months. And I've talked to another woman who said it took her a year. 3 months to basically say, okay, I am going to live my life. I took this as a death sentence. 3 months. I'm like, well, that's it. I'm done. I'm cooked. I've given it my all for about all these years, since the first diagnosis. Cannot do this anymore. I guess I'm just going to give it my best for the next 3 months and I'll be dead. After 3 months, I wasn't dead. So I was like, okay, well, I guess life is continuing. How am I going to show up for it? Right? That's a decision that I made. It's a focus that I chose. And that's the power of the mind. Now, the last one, and I know I'm extending more than 10 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up. Connection to spirit, because that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. I have a deep spiritual practice. And what I mean by this deep, it's not like I'm digging deep every day. But I, for some reason in this lifetime, was born knowing that there was a part of me that is wiser than my mind, emotions, and body. And I've literally my entire life, since I want to say entire life, maybe for the last 35 years, have dedicated a practice every day to connecting to that part of me. Again, it's a practice. It doesn't happen by itself. I have to remind myself of it on a daily basis. Yet I know that I'm much more than this body, mind, emotion, and this human experience. So I am going to wrap up on this. And I'm going to review what we talked about today. And I'm going to give you an assignment. And hopefully tomorrow you'll be here. I'm so excited. I have to tell you, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to have questions or comments before we completely close today. But we talked about the stress and the stress response. And again, go back and listen if you have the time, or think about it. What is your stress response? Where do you get rigged up, hooked up? And then physiology affects psychology. Breath, movement will change how your body responds to this moment. Emotional release matters. Your emotions are a flow. If you let that flow happen, like think of water, if it's stagnant, it starts festering. If it flows, it's clear and it moves things through. Your mind has the power to impact on your emotions in your body. And then your connection to spirit is really about remembering who you are. Whatever that practice is, I am not someone who's going to tell you what to do. You already know what brings peace into your heart and your body. So here we go. I have a gift for you if you want to post something on the group page called Healing Sanctuary. If you haven't joined yet, please do. It's on the Facebook. It's on Facebook. I'll post a link. I don't know how you connected to me, but anyways, if you're not there today, go search for Healing Sanctuary on Facebook. So I would like for you to give me a statement or a practice, and maybe I should have backed up. But anyways, so one practice, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, that's all I would like for you to post, is something that you currently do that helps you regain balance and homeostasis, or something that you would like to do to implement. And if I'm going to draw a winner tomorrow, and you're going to get this CD. It's a CD from Deepak Chopra. Oops, sorry. The Soul of Healing Meditation. I listened to that beautiful CD because he basically talks about some of the things that I'm talking about today, and really how to bring healing and connect to that greater picture. So if you win the contest today, you will get this CD in the mail next week, okay? So I'm going to let go of that slide again and see if we have any. Oh my gosh, I went so much later than I thought. Okay, here we are. Comments, questions to wrap this up? Anybody? Anybody posting? Oh, something on the chat? Oh, the monkey trap. Okay, that was good. All right. Okay, so if you had one word to summarize what you're leaving with today, just one word, what would it be? Or a couple of words, it doesn't have to be only one, but what are you leaving with today? Anyone? Barb, do you have something that sticks to your brain? Or your mind?
Knowledge.
Okay. Okay, is there anything on Facebook?
There is not. Freedom is another really good word. Chantal, what you were talking today was about freedom.
Yes. Tell me more. I'm just curious.
You're gonna make me teary. Yeah, it's really good. Just really looking at how we don't have to live the life we've always lived. Like that we can be more intentional about it, and the future is ours. Be brave, create your future. You had that on one of the slides and it was amazing. Yeah.
It's okay to be teary, you know that, right?
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone, thank you for staying with me today. And I'm going to post a recording on a Facebook group page. And I am also going to look forward to your post. And tomorrow, same time, I promise I won't pass the time. There's so much more to say about this. As you can tell, I'm very excited about talking about this topic because it matters to me. It matters to my health, and it matters for me to plant a seed for other women to be able to feel that sense of empowerment. That's what I'm doing this for. So again, one post, a practice, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, that you want to share with us. And I will see you tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And thank you, Barb, for being here today. I really appreciate you holding the space.
Absolutely. And one of the folks, one of the women said, thank you very much. So the gratitude is coming in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very powerful.
I appreciate it. Okay. I will
see you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow, and have a good day today. It's Saturday. Have fun. Bye.